In the United States, we reject the idea that mass numbers of people from foreign lands can be permitted to travel halfway around the world, trample our borders, violate our sovereignty, cause unmitigated crime. America belongs to the American people. You're destroying your countries. They're being destroyed.
So today, it's finally time to talk about the big orange guy, Donald Trump. We're going to be looking at what exactly he's doing in his own country and how it's affecting his own country. How his strange methods of ruling the country often do help him in establishing the things he wants to establish, despite it seeming ridiculous to anybody watching from the outside. But before we get all into that, it might be useful to quickly explain who I am. My name is Thibaut, and on this channel I make all types of videos, mostly political videos, but also philosophical essays, video essays, and sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll also make videos. Yeah. Now, in the past couple of videos, I've discussed the book of Naomi Klein called The Shock Doctrine, in which she lays out this theory of how economics, mainly inspired by Milton Friedman, have used shock therapy on the economies of different countries in order to push reforms on a population which would normally not accept these reforms. Now, in the previous video, we also looked at how these theories were put into action in countries such as Chile and Argentina, but also in the West, in the UK, in Russia, and later as well in the Iraq war. So if you haven't seen those videos yet, I definitely recommend checking them out. But today we're going to be talking about how the theories were implemented after the Iraq war, and most importantly, how Trump is using some very similar theories right now, and also how to defend yourself against these theories. Already very soon after the Iraq war, we see examples of how disaster capitalism, the idea that you can profit from a tragedy, the idea that you can profit from chaos within a country, was already used at the fall of the stock market in 2008. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with what happened in 2008, whether you were alive or if you saw the movie The Big Short. It doesn't matter. What happened in 2008 was that the housing market crashed. Billions and billions of dollars disappeared overnight, and millions of people were left in monetary issues, even losing their homes. But what's interesting is that the people who actually caused this crisis, or at least helped it happen, were the bankers on Wall Street. And what's peculiar is that most of these bankers, when their companies went bankrupt or when they were fired during this crisis, they still received millions in bonuses. 18.4 billion in total, to be exact. And also, while the people were suffering, rich people and corporations were able to buy the houses that people were forced to sell just to be able to continue living. So on one of the worst crises that the Western world faced in a long time, it's quite clear to see that there were still huge amounts of rich people benefiting from the chaos, benefiting from the disaster itself. And sadly, this is often a quite common result in market crashes, where companies are able to get richer while the population suffers. This type of suffering, this type of benefiting, and this type of disaster is not limited to wars, it's not limited to governments, and it's not limited to market crashes either. There's a new type of disaster which is sadly occurring more and more often, which is natural disasters. Now, these disasters are becoming more and more common with the increase of climate change. Now, you can be a climate change denier for all I care, but you can't deny that there are companies, there are people that are benefiting from the disasters caused by natural weather events. For example, in 2004, when Sri Lanka was hit by a tsunami, which led to the destruction of millions of houses on the beaches. After the tsunami happened, after the people wanted to return to their land, they found out that their land on the beachfronts was sold off to multinational companies in order to build tourist resorts on their land. And the same happened in the US, where when it was hit with Hurricane Katrina, one of the worst natural weather events that happened in the US in contemporary history. And it's also one of the first events in which disaster capitalism was used on US soil, because when the hurricane hit, when hundreds of schools were destroyed, the occasion arose and the opportunity arose to prioritize the rebuilding and the establishment of more and more private schools. So when all of the schools were destroyed, they decided to use this opportunity to build more private schools to benefit from the money that earned in that sector. But these all happened a long time ago, but even current climate change disaster, even current natural disasters are benefited from in a very similar way. People are forced to leave their homes, and when they try to return, they find out that their land has been sold off. Or they return and find out that everything is ruined, and then a corporation steps in and offers them a very low price, way lower than what they would normally earn if their land had not been destroyed by a natural disaster. They offer them this price, they take this because they have nothing left, and they leave. Either way, there's more and more corporations, more and more people benefiting from natural disasters or any other type of disaster, and especially the chaos that follows it. And when we mention chaos, that brings us to the orange man, to Trump. Now, there's numerous ways that Trump is using the exact rules of the Shock Doctrine in order to get away with a lot in his own country. The clearest example of Trump using the Shock Doctrine is in his use of tariffs. The way that he threatens every single country to hit them with import taxes, to hit them with tariffs, is purely used as a way of shock. Because oftentimes Trump does not at all implement these tariffs, he just uses it and the shock of it to bring down their economy so that he can impose better deals and benefit from the shock that is caused by them. He's literally found a sort of cheat code to get lower prices on everything. And Trump uses it as if it's a discount code as well, because he shows no remorse whatsoever when he's using these methods. Even a worse example of Trump influencing the market can be seen in just a couple weeks ago, when Trump said that he would once again hit China with more import tariffs. Now, 24 hours before he did this, one person bought millions of stocks betting against the crypto market, which normally seems like a stupid thing to do, but then 24 hours later, Trump says he's going to put more import taxes on China, and the crypto market crashes. And this one individual who had shorted the crypto market for millions of dollars in less than 24 hours before this walked away with millions and millions of profit. Profit made from benefiting from the suffrage of millions of other people. Now, we don't know if this was Trump or somebody in his inner circle, but it was an individual who, unless he got very lucky, but most likely knew that Trump was going to announce this within 24 hours. It's a very petty thing to do, but in Trump's current term, which is not even a year long yet, he has done this over and over again, making millions of profit through deals such as this. Investing in the American stock market right now and entrusting Trump to not crash it must be one of the worst things you could possibly do right now. But Trump is not just affecting the stock market within his own country. That's not the only way he's applying shock and benefiting from it. You can also see it in how he uses ICE, how he uses the fear that he installs on immigrants in order to then allow his friends, his business owners, his farm owners, to force these same migrants who make up the majority of the labor force working on American farms. They are now more and more easily forced into accepting very low wages because they are so scared of being deported, being arrested, and being sent to a camp, literally a camp from which they don't know if they will ever return or ever see their family again. The amount of shock this causes to a nation and to a people can't be underestimated. So overall, Trump uses this way of shocking his country to get away with a lot of reforms which normally would not at all be accepted. The same with Trump's big beautiful bill. I doubt that the bill would ever have been successful if it wasn't implemented during these times of shock. I mean, Literally every day Trump does something and you think it can't get worse than this. And then the day after it does, causing you to forget what happened the day before. Trump does so many things so quickly that we can't even keep up, or at least we're struggling to keep up. He does so many things so quickly that it's impossible, nearly impossible, for the US population to keep up with everything that he's doing. And that's exactly what he wants you to do. He wants you to forget what he did yesterday. He wants you to forget what you did last week, because that way he can get away with more and more stuff. Now, this is not only limited to Trump's own country, sadly, because we can see him doing very similar things in Gaza and Israel, where Trump again proposed very bold plans, to say the least, on how to benefit from the genocide from Israel in Gaza with his proposal of Trump Gaza. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen the AI created video, and it might have been satire, it might have been intended as a joke, but it does show the level that they are prepared to go to. Because Trump Gaza might have been a joke, we don't know yet, but it might have been. But the rebuilding of Gaza will most likely be very favorable to Israel and to the US. I doubt that Gaza will be rebuilt in a way that benefits the Palestinian people and in a way that secures the security and autonomy of a Palestinian state. The Gaza and Israeli war aren't the only ones suffering under Trump's leadership. The other big war that's going on right now between Russia and Ukraine is having a very similar effect, where Trump is shocking Ukraine in numerous ways, whether it be the public display of immatureness when receiving Zelensky in the White House. I'm sure you all remember the moment where he literally started treating Zelensky like a child. But another way that he's shocking Ukraine is by seemingly letting the foot that he steps out of bed with decide which side he's for. The other day he's for Russia, the other day he's for Ukraine. Now, we don't know everything that goes on between Putin and Trump. We don't know everything that Putin has promised to Trump. But we know that Zelensky on numerous occasions has been forced by the EU as well, they're not innocent in this either, to accept a deal from Trump to send more than $500 million worth of minerals to the US once Ukraine ends the war. These are Ukrainian minerals, the profits of which would have normally been able to rebuild their own country. But now Trump forces them to sell these minerals for a way lower price, a price which has been accepted because the country is in a state of shock. A state of shock that Trump has helped to create. Sadly, Trump's reforms are not at all limited to these cases internationally, because we see that he's trying to do a very similar thing to Venezuela, where he has been bombing ships in front of the Venezuelan coast, killing tens of people weekly for no justified reason whatsoever. And what's worse is that he has been threatening to take it even further. He has been threatening a full-on invasion on land, and time will tell if he will do it. So in short, the shock doctrine is the belief that you can apply the principles of shock therapy on an economy, shocking an economy to its core, and then pushing reforms which a democratic nation, a democratic people would not normally accept. Now, we've seen this shock doctrine being applied in many different scenarios, all of them as bad as the other, and sadly it shows no sign of stopping, as Trump is very much doing it to this date. Now, thankfully, Naomi Klein does propose some alternatives, namely the most important one being awareness. Klein believes that if we're all aware of the shock doctrine, all aware of what Trump is really trying to do, and not letting him do it to us, not letting him shock us, that way we can resist the reforms. Never stop protesting, never stop resisting his hideous reforms, and never be afraid to use your voice and stand up against these methods. Naomi Klein is still very active on social media. You can watch her videos. She has released plenty of videos, plenty of debates, plenty of interviews where she analyzes Trump's reforms even deeper, and I definitely recommend watching them if you thought this was interesting. But that's it for today, and that's the end of the Shock Doctrine series. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to leave a comment and like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.